Mic's unmuted. Fifteen seconds coming up on Jane. 10 seconds. 5.
My name is Dr. Jane Goldberg. I'm a psychoanalyst, I'm an author, and I am the owner of La Casa Day Spa on 20th Street in Manhattan. My show is called Inspirations, and here we talk about where spa health and home health meet and where mind and body meet. And today, my show is going to be around group analysis. I wanted to begin by talking about a study that was done at Kaiser Permanente Hospital in California. They decided to research the phenomenon of group therapy, and they did it with terminally ill patients. They were hoping that being and having a group experience would help the patients to cope with their pain. That was what they were studying, pain. Much to their surprise, it really shocked all of the researchers. What they found is that the patients who were in the group therapy lived longer than the patients who were not getting the group therapy. So that was an important study because those of us who have been doing group analysis for a really long time felt that it really confirmed our clinical perceptions and understandings of what happens, the very powerful phenomenon of group analysis. So in my show today, I have invited various people to come and talk with us about their experiences in group analysis. And we have with us people that are all of us in fact have been group patients in various groups because some of us are analysts, and in order to be an analyst, you also have to undergo your own analysis. And some of us are only members of groups and not themselves analysts. So we have a kind of mix here, and I think we're going to have an interesting dialogue about both our theoretical concepts of what happens in group therapy and how it improves life, and also we can talk about our personal experiences. I myself was in a group for 17 years. And so for 17 years, every week at the same time, same place, a group of, 14 to 16 people met. We didn't even know each other's last names, but my experience of being in that room for an hour and a half once a week for 17 years is that everybody in that room got to know each other better than the spouses of anybody that was in that room. It's an incredibly powerfully intimate experience to just come together every week and share your internal life with all of these people who come to know you exceedingly well. So I'm just going to go through the various people that we have here from left to right. This is Michael, this is Michal, this is Jane, this is Ellie, this is Gary, and this is Seema. And let's just talk and see what we come up with. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that Kaiser study because I think it really has gone to understanding that group work is really an important wave of the future in therapy. I think it's a growing phenomenon, and I'm glad to be able to be here and talk about it.
And do you think it's a wave of the future, or do you think it's a relic from the past?
I think it's all three. A relic from the past, important in the present, and it's going to stay important for the future.
And what you mean by relic from the past, of course, is that we all have memories that form our characterological issues, defenses, and get in the way of being completely present in the now, as Eckhart Tolle says. So maybe we could think about when we psychoanalysts believe in the unconscious and the existence of the unconscious, and we believe that the unconscious informs to a certain extent how we behave and how we think and how we feel. And so part of the purpose of analysis is to make the unconscious conscious. Could we
Yes,
say
that would be totally fair.
So in the realm of the unconscious, there's no past, present, and future. So we're talking about it all. How about this side of the room? Anybody want to say anything?
I think that it's not only to make the unconscious conscious, because I think that especially after doing a long years of analysis, you find that consciousness in itself is not enough. And I think that the unique thing about group is that it gives you an experience, a very intense experience, an emotional experience, social experience, and I think that's a unique contribution of group, that it's not a kind of a rational or cognitive process, it's a very emotional process. It happens on many levels, and I think that's part of the amazing power of group, that it works on many levels, and it does it in an hour and a half a week usually, which is the format that usually group is done. So I think that's...
So it's not only the knowledge of the unconscious, but it's really reintegrating pieces of the personality that we don't get to in any other way, or that we tend to push away. Like I have, running my groups, I have a patient who told me, I knew that the person that is annoying me the most is the one that is going to teach me the most about me. So it's reintegrating denied part of ourselves.
So as one of the few non-analysts in this group, it kind of forces you, it's like kind of like a microcosm of life, and it forces you to be amongst people who you probably wouldn't choose as your friends, but they...
But then again, we don't choose our families
Right.
of birth.
Yeah, so it's a microcosm of our families.
Our first family.
And it forces us to come to terms with things we probably don't want to. And so as the non-analyst, that's how I see it.
So
Yeah, I
you're
can-
really saying that the negative feelings that you're having and the difficult struggles that you have become your best friends.
After you have, yes, after a while.
After you-
At first you resist it, and then then you have to face it, and they become your best friends.
As Mitchell said, it's like I learn to know myself through you. I look at you and I learn about myself.
Who is Mitchell?
Mitchell, the famous Mitchell
The
from
astronaut?
Transactional, no, he is a
no.
transactional analyst, and I knew his daughter who was...
Mitchell
who
died recently.
he
and
died
wrote
and-
a fantastic book about love. I forgot the name, but anyway, yeah.
And his daughter is an artist, and she was presenting with my... and she painted pictures of different analysts from her. She's a daughter who grew up on the lap of analysis.
Yes.
And so it was a very
And he was a
interesting...
fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic person. But it's like that's how I see the group is. The group is a whole of mirrors, and we learn from looking at mirrors. We learn
So everyone in the group can come to represent some internal
piece of
conflict.
it. And as you said, and I totally agree with that, in a group you have people that you might push away in your life, but you have to really put together whatever they represent for you and learn about yourself what they represent. So they are holding for you pieces of yourself that you can integrate.
That you reject, and then...
reject,
and
right,
this is an
denied part.
opportunity to integrate them rather than kind of eject them from yourself. And
That's
it's
how I call it, like a re-education. I call it my...
Emotional re-education.
right, and it's like a sandbox.
One thing that occurs to me as I'm listening to all of this, I remember the first day that I ever went to your group, Jane. And I sat there, quietly and nervously, and I don't remember anything except that I thought, I can't believe she thinks that I'm that sick that I should be with these people. And I mean, this is an insult. So I called her. I said, Jane, do you think I'm that crazy? This group? I'm appalled. I'm so humiliated and insulted. And you said, and it's so many years ago. I mean, it's way more years than I want to admit. And you said
More than my 17 and my
way
group.
more. Yeah. and you said, well, I think this is very significant. And you mentioned it was probably similar to how I might have felt in my family, which, when I think about it, is so spot on. And I was observing how I feel here in this group. I don't know everybody, but I have some familiarity with some of you. And I feel really comfortable in this group, calm, and I don't feel pressure
You learn something
to
just-
do anything. So I don't, I think that there's something to be said about that. And just going back quickly to that original group, I despised them and I was wounded by the placement of the group. But over the years, I really started feeling okay. You know, I realized it wasn't as crazy as I thought it was. But my original family was very crazy.
Okay,
But
I'm gonna,
you became less crazy. You learned something with,
Right.
with
I'm going to
Jane.
say something that is going to really narcissistically wound you. But I have enough confidence that you're going
He's
to
gonna
rise to
handle
the
it.
occasion
Let's
and be
go
okay
for
with
it.
it. So Michael was exactly the opposite of your situation. He didn't call me and say, why did you put me in with all those crazy people? The people that I put him in with all called me and said, why did you put that crazy person with us?
Oh, that's so funny.
So I
Compliment.
Why do you think he
asked-
can handle that?
because the reason why I asked him is because he's like my poster group patient.
Yeah.
He's such
Uh,
a success story.
He is an amazing success story. He's grown faster and better than any patient I've ever seen in group. So, so tell us
Appreciate that.
what your experience of group is.
For me, I mean, I'm kind of listening to all the ideas that you're speaking about, and I don't come from the analysis background. I'm just a group member. But to hear you talk about mirrors and what I'm going through every day in my life and what I bring into that group is every day I go through life and I go through it with just my perspective. And in group, I sit around with a number of other people and I hear their perspectives, and it just gives me something that's outside of myself that helps me evaluate who I am, and it teaches me to be present, and it teaches me to try to understand these people more, where they're coming from more, and that helps me understand myself more and how I conduct myself in group and then in turn out in the outside world.
That's a good mother you have there in that group.
Jane.
No, he's got 12 good mothers now.
and
Now they love him.
How long do you have?
Just since the summertime, since
Oh.
July, so.
But that's what the power of
Very
the group
impressive.
is. Wow. As opposed to individual therapy.
When
Because
he-
you have
Yeah,
12 mothers
I
as
want to.
opposed to one mother.
I want to go into that
I
topic.
could also
I just want to say about
speak.
Michael that.
He wanted-
Yeah, I'm going to let him talk in a minute. When Michael started, he was very coherent and persuasive, and spoke clearly. When he started, all he did was blabber. It was like this non-ending. Who is this person? Where does he end and begin? So
It's helped me find my voice a lot, and because it gives me my reflection. The other people give me a reflection of what I give to them, and so when they can understand me, when I say things that are clear, it helps. But also, I mean, the difference. I also go to Jane for psychoanalysis, and I think that the difference between group and psychoanalysis is that group is much more immediate. It's much more about the present, and it's how you're interacting with the other people. Where with psychoanalysis, it's kind of what you're bringing into it, and it's very filtered through what I want to speak about. But with group, it puts you there, and it's in the present, and it just the effects come a lot quicker. And I think that's played a huge role in the change that you talk about so quickly.
So actually, with my patients, if I am accepting a new patient into my practice, I do something that's a bit unusual, which is that I say I have a group practice, and if I am going to work with you,
You have to
and
go there.
if you want to be cured,
You have to come to my
then
sandbox.
it's not an option.
Well, that's interesting.
It's a requirement.
You know what? I should start doing that.
Absolutely.
Because I was wondering why I don't do that.
Because I do believe that you do not get a full, complete analysis
you're right.
unless you have
I
individual and
present
group.
it, but I don't do. I'm not that tough about it. They know it's
Well-
my commercial, and it comes every couple of hours. They hear
As
it again.
as modern
Right,
analysts, we
yes.
believe in resistance. We embrace
Right.
resistance instead of trying to sledgehammer it away. So a resistance to join. I have one patient I've been seeing for 30 years.
And won't join.
And she's still resisting, even knowing that I have other patients besides her. So it might take a long time.
You know, talking about resistance, I think it's very interesting because if you don't like Jane, or if you don't like periodically Jane, you have the other mothers. So I think it's very powerful to be in a group where the patient cannot talk to you, where he or she resists you at that moment. They can hear other members of the group. So in the group, what I would do is I would take the fire into me, and then they're very angry with me, but they can hear much better the rest. And so that would, it's definitely much more powerful.
But doesn't
And
everybody
used
want
together
the
is
one
a
mother?
very,
Doesn't everybody want the
yeah,
mother?
that's
I
a
mean,
good
they
fight. You
over
fight,
the
you
one
fight.
mother.
It's
No,
important.
that's one dynamic
Yes.
that everybody wants a mother. Another dynamic is it's the mother without any milk, and I'm going to the other one that understands me better.
Right.
But I don't
Or they might have
experience
it.
it that they want other people. I experience, at least in my group, people either yelling at you or fighting with you, and they don't get any comfort or any support. If they don't want the other one, they want to deal right on with you.
No, there is a person in your group
It does that.
who gets nothing from me, and always there's a group member, one group
That's
member
true.
that always
They don't get
understands
listened to.
her.
But there are some that only want to deal with you.
There are some. It's an early transference that mother is the entire world, and if they stay in group long enough, they may have to stay in another 120 years. If they stay in long enough, they'll move
I
beyond
did
it.
2 tours with you, so and each experience was very different.
Are you still in the only thing you want is from mother?
No,
You're not. So you
No.
move
that's-
beyond that.
You used to be like that?
I was in 2 groups with Jane. One like 20 years ago, and I stayed there for a while, and then I went back, and I expected the same experience, and I really fought at the beginning. Do you remember that?
You said you hated this group.
I want my
It
old
wasn't the
group
old
back.
group.
I wanted my, and the truth is, after I don't know how many years I'm in this group, I definitely got more out of this group because there were people that I didn't want to be with, and they did force me to see who I
But that's
am.
exactly why I find individual group therapy so much more powerful. That's exactly why, because if you it's a dyadic relationship that stays dyadic when you are in when you're one-to-one, and it's triadic and it's much more socialized and it's a higher level of socialization when you are in a group. So that's why the group is so much more powerful.
Well, I like to see the example of how you could
works
do,
faster.
you're actually, by your own personal experience, which I really love that you're sharing, overcoming something that could really easily have happened here, which is you've got these analysts, and then there are the non-analyst members, and it could easily be a definition of I'm out and they're in, and that's a common thing you get to confront in group, and how you're really coming forward with that, and not being stuck behind that split.
Maybe
And
so.
sharing your experience.
That's because all the years of group that helped me through it.
Yeah, well, there you
I
go.
sat with all you
My
analysts.
definition of cure from group analysis is that aside from all the other things that can happen and need to happen, one thing that has to happen is that you walk into any room anywhere on earth with any people and you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to add also that I find that when I work with patients individually, and there is some indulgence and getting stuck in the coziness of the one-to-one, and there's something about group that doesn't let you just coast. You have to move. I also have to say that I have seen people who have been with me in individual analysis for many years, and putting them to group put such a new spin on how I saw them, how I understood what the dynamic is, where they stuck, what's going on, and how they saw themselves. So I think that I again and
Exactly.
again I get confirmation how indispensable this format is to a full analysis.
But we
So,
live in
yeah.
society. We live in a hall of mirrors. So we want to know how to utilize it better, and we learn it in this lab that is a safe lab, how to operate.
Yeah.
And it's very it's much faster.
I think it is a laboratory of learning, and I've never had a patient come in and say, I want to be in group. You know, when we get a new patient in group, the group members say, why are you here? And everybody always answers the same way, because Jane told me to be here. Because Jane made me be here.
I think there's a safety in group where you can say things that you wouldn't ordinarily say in social circumstances or with your friends.
You're trying
And you can't
Oh,
get away
yeah.
with that stuff. And in group, you can say something, you can say what you're feeling, and people are going to give you feedback on that. It's going to help you change that so you don't do these things in other places.
And I want to go back to the notion of lab, that it's a laboratory where you learn a very specific skill, which most of us did not learn in growing up. And that skill is to access what you're thinking and feeling, and to also access what the other person is thinking and feeling, and form a communication that's effective and powerful and meaningful, and also
Right, that's
authentic.
well put. Yeah.
Progressive communication.
Sometimes it's aggressive and sometimes
Progressive.
Oh, progressive
Progressive.
means that you have access to whatever new thoughts, new feelings may come into you. And so when I explain that to patients, they say, well, so why do I need that? You need it because it helps you to function more effectively in life, but I see it as being like learning the piano, for instance. You don't need to learn the piano, but if you do learn the piano, it's a skill that you can call upon anytime you want to, that you have the choice to do that activity. And so I see what you learn from group analysis is that it gives you a skill that you then have it's not that you're going to go out in life and always verbalize what you're thinking and feeling to
Right,
everybody.
you're not.
Right.
It just
Maybe
gives
not.
you the ability to
Right,
do it.
but that's
to
a great
know what you're
example.
to know what you're thinking and feeling.
Right.
Because a lot of people really just automatically function with in the context of their relationships, and they know they're not feeling so good, or maybe they know they're feeling great. But I think the group experience helps us to really know what specifically makes us feel good and what makes us feel not good, and filter it.
So, would you conclude, Jane, that being in group experience, being in group therapy improves marriages, for instance, and improves relationships between parents and children?
That's a good question. I think it should.
Both parties have to be in the group. If one is and one isn't, can it work?
That's a good question, too.
Well, I think
Yes.
it's probably best if both are.
Yes.
I think you're working at a real handicap if one is and one isn't. However, if one is and they're really doing the work, we were talking about this last night in group, that all marriages are profoundly disappointing, and we all disappoint each other and so much it's silly. So if, say, you're in group therapy but your husband isn't, you hopefully will come to grips with the fact that he's probably a profound disappointment, and which I'm struggling with after a million years myself. But sorry to my husband, but he knows that. Anyway, so you'll just begin to, I guess, get more comfortable with it, don't you think? Rather than need to batter him.
Well, I think if music is really important to you, for instance, and you take piano lessons, and you do take piano lessons, and music is not important to your husband, and he doesn't take piano lessons, then I think you are growing in different ways, and sometimes that can be resolved and it's accepted. But if it's a growth that feels crucial to your being, to the core of your being, like who am I and who are you and who are we as a we, then you'll grow faster and in a different way than he does. And yes, I think that there would be problems.
Could be
Oh, okay,
problems,
so you
but
think-
Could be.
Could
Well,
be, but
yeah.
don't you think there could also be acceptance? There's definitely, it would be frustrating and problematic, but it could go either way. It could also be like, I will accept what I have and deal with it. Because I think that's something we struggle with so much. And in group, often we are satisfied by each other. We learn how to resolve conflicts, fight with each other, listen to each other, which is not what happens always in a household. So the contrast can be a little jarring at times.
But as Lou Ullman said, what you learn in the group will appear in your life 3 months later. So what Lou Ullman, the famous Lou Ullman group analyst, that what you learn in the lab, you then you can activate in your life, as you said, when you need it, and then it will improve the relationship. That's, and of course, if you have, I always struggle with this. What happens if you have one partner, one spouse in a group and the other? I mean, there is a problem, because if you grow and the other one doesn't grow, I mean, piano is one thing, but if you don't grow in the same
Emotionally.
So that can be
speed,
off.
then you grow away, and so it's
Because
very
we
important.
don't always play the piano, but we do
Yeah,
always
always
function
live,
from our
right,
emotions.
right.
But I
Well, what's
wanna say-
interesting
yeah.
is that you keep using the idea of piano and playing, and I think, but I think that play comes into that's a place to learn to play and play with feeling.
Yeah.
And so again, to
That's what
quote
it
Lou,
says,
that
sandbox.
the feelings become just feelings.
Yes.
And every impasse that you reach is not a gunfight at the OK Corral. It's there's a playful possibility in it.
There's an irony in this work we do, because so many people come in without knowing their feelings, and so we work so hard to get them to have their feelings. Yay, you have a feeling, and then we deliver the next news, which is, it's just a feeling.
Right.
Right.
Stop taking it so seriously.
Yeah. No, what I wanted to add is that I think in work with couples also and in group with one of the spouses. I think there's something that is like that works like osmosis. That if one
Yes.
person is really doing the work, it kind of seeps out into the
They're the
spouse.
change agent.
And yes, and exactly. So that it's. I don't think that it necessarily, at least in my experience, it hasn't been. It hasn't kind of exacerbated or made the relationship worse, but on the contrary, it
always makes it.
It's always an improvement. And if there was a shift, it was there anyway. If it was a kind of a distance and people are moving, I
Well,
don't think the group.
The way I see when it gets worse is the same way I see, and this is going to segue into my next topic, is when the body begins to detoxify, sometimes the symptoms get worse because so much is being stimulated in order for it to get out and be
To
resolved.
clean out, to cleanse.
Yeah, and so I think when it gets worse emotionally, it's because something's being
that's a
stimulated
good point.
that has not yet been resolved.
Yes.
So following that thought, since I work a lot with cancer patients, I'd like to open up the discussion for how it is that group analysis and analysis affects the body, and can we cure bodily diseases? Can we cure cancer through analysis, for instance?
I don't think we can. I mean, I don't think it's enough, but I think it's a very essential aspect of
It's necessary, but not
yes.
enough. It definitely. I mean, it's.
Well put.
I don't know about cancer, but I know about life. You know, when you are in your feeling, you are alive. And so if you learn how to be in your feeling and you have a partner or environment or whatever, talking about green environment, if you're alive with your feelings, you're alive, you're green. That's the only time that you know you are alive, and you feel it. You know, I know when people are not in their feelings, I'm bored. And I
That's
tell
true.
them, you're boring me.
That is
Yeah.
true.
You're not talking. What are you not talking about? Tell me what you're not talking about.
Yeah, and that's killing. When what we don't talk about will kill us.
Right.
So in this respect, I
Yes.
think it's true that it's necessary. I don't think it's enough because
We
you
don't know
the body
more.
is very powerful, you know, and it can do things that
Has a mind of its own.
yeah, and it has mounted on. But I think that I like what you said, Stima, because I think that feeling alive is absolutely essential to conquering disease. You know, you know,
See, I mean,
being
it's
alive.
one of my teachers said, you know, that if we could be in the presence of the presence, of the
Of the
present of
present.
the present at all time, we wouldn't die. Because then you are at the moment. So the only way to do it is to be in your feelings. The only way we know how to do it is to be, you know, I guess that Descartes would be smarter if he would say, I feel, therefore I am.
Yeah.
So I would like to say I do think psychoanalysis can cure all diseases of the body, but I think it doesn't always. But I think it can.
It can prevent for
That's
sure.
And
what I was
absolutely.
thinking, more preventive.
Prevention.
I think we're all
Prevention
going
for
to live
sure.
longer
Yes.
from being analyzed.
Yes.
This has been wonderful and exciting and
Thank you,
stimulating and fascinating, and I thank you all for coming. My show is Inspirations. I invite you to join me next week. Thank you. It was great.
Great. Thank you, Jane.
Very good. Very well done.
All of you.
We should do this every week.
I see you want to join our group.
Maybe. But that was good. It was a nice
It was
discussion.
brilliant.
It flowed and it was
Everybody was so
informative.
brilliant.
So we could do it again sometime.
Follow up to see if we improve.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
What's the next show?
Thank you. Kind of invite me.
Oh, Jane, were you going to be doing something with your list for the DVD? Oh,
Did you bring your paper?
what time is it, 2?
You have to leave also.
No,
Do you
I
want-
do have my paper.
Why don't
Okay, I
you
do.
have
Let's
her talk
shut up.
about the living story?
Whatever she wants has on her list, so
Yeah.
we'll just.
I see you want to join our group.
Maybe. But that was good. It was a nice
It was
discussion.
brilliant.
It flowed and it was
Everybody was so
informative.
brilliant.
So we could do it again sometime.
Follow up to see if we improve.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
What's the next show?
Thank you. Kind of invite me.
Oh, Jane,